Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of my podcast. So, this might actually be episode 3, depending on when it comes out, but this is episode 2 talking about Jennifer Crumbley. I am in day 2 of Jennifer Crumbley, and really, we're going to cover day 2, but I have completed the entire trial over the weekend. I couldn't not watch it, and I'm so happy I did because I have so much to talk about and so much to share. I was thinking how I should split this up, and depending upon how I go through the information, it might be 1 or 2 episodes, but I think overall it will be a journey for us all, and hopefully everyone has been able to watch day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, and day 7, because the closing arguments are one for the books, guys. And I do want to shout out, just in case this is your first time here joining me, I do want to shout out True Crime Loser. You are my inspiration, Scott Sharp. You are the reason I'm here today. So let's really get into it, guys, and let's talk about day 2. First and foremost, before we get started, we're going to talk about Jennifer Crumbley. She is the mother of Ethan Crumbley. Her son murdered 4 children, teenagers if you want to call them, but they weren't adults yet, and I feel like they had a lot more life to live. So I'm going to call them children because they didn't have that chance to turn 18 yet, have that fun, live their life, be an adult. They were still in school. They were still living their best life as a teenager, as you should. I lived as a teenager in high school, and the experiences I had, I wouldn't give it up for anything. You know, that wonder you have when you're in high school, that curiosity, that fun, the carelessness, it can't be replaced. So what he did was ended 4 children's lives. I can't stress that enough, and I just want to keep them in the forefront of our minds while we go through this story. As sad as it is, there is a lot behind this story in terms of the court case with Jennifer Crumbley that I feel like it's absurd. I mean, there's just no other way to say it. It's just absurd, and especially with her defense attorney. I think throughout this trial, my opinion has actually changed. Surprisingly enough, it's not very frequently that a defense attorney will change my opinion unless the evidence is very clear. I think in this case, one of the reasons why a lot of us is attracted to this case is because it's the ambiguity. It's because it may fall somewhat in between the lines of between right and wrong. And is it bad? Is it good? Is it bad parenting? I don't know. And I think that's something this case seeks to explore, and it's something we're here to discuss today. So I want to thank everyone here for joining me. Hopefully my audio today is clear, crystal clear. You guys can hear me and there's no issues. So yeah, let's really get into it. And to start off, I mean, this defense attorney, Shannon Smith, I'll just start off by saying I did not know that Shannon Smith was Larry Nassar's defense attorney. Okay, I'm just going to start off by saying that. I didn't know. And it wasn't until I went through the comments that I realized, wait a minute, this is like, I cannot believe this. I didn't follow the Larry Nassar case when it happened because, frankly, I'm not big into child abuse cases because what is there to discuss? So the fact that Shannon Smith, who is Jennifer Crumbley's defense attorney, was Larry Nassar's defense attorney, I'm sorry, says a lot. There's not a lot of people that would have taken that case. There's not a lot of defense attorneys or attorneys, period, that would have taken that case, but especially defense attorneys. So she is in a special niche of really deplorable cases where like almost no one would want to take them. And especially with a school shooter case, right? Like you're the mother of a school shooter. Your son massacred 4 children, teenagers, and injured others and frightened many. The amount of people that come into this courtroom that talk about the trauma that they still experience from this event is immeasurable. So, and even though we just see the people during the trial, the amount of people that have been affected by this in the neighborhood, in the community, the families, you can't put a number on it. And I was just watching it, and I'm miles away from where this occurred, and I'm tearing up. I'm getting emotional because it's just horrible to hear about parents losing their child. So without getting too deep into that, because we know what that is, we know the impact of that, and we know that there's nothing that can turn that back. There's nothing that can give these children their life back. There's nothing that can give these parents their children back. We just have to talk about where we are today. And where we are today is dealing with Shannon Smith, Jennifer Crumbley, and this quite fascinating case. We're looking at a parent that is charged with involuntary manslaughter. Basically saying you did not give ordinary care to your child who deserved it. And that is why you are charged with this, because you were negligent in giving ordinary care. Just ordinary. Now, I saw like a couple of pictures of their home. I saw a couple of just images and to kind of understand how they lived. And when I grew up, when I was very young, my room was a mess, but it wasn't to the extent that I could not sleep in my room. And it was never to the extent that my mother just let that happen, or my father, but primarily my mother, the more nurturing one. My father, he was out in the yard, he was cutting grass, he was doing whatever. My mother was the one that was sort of directing us in the home. In my family, Saturdays was the cleaning day. Saturdays, you had to clean the house from top to bottom. And we all had to do that. And that did not exclude our rooms. So I'm not saying my parents are perfect by any means, because they're definitely not. And I could tell you guys a million stories about that. But my point is that they wanted us to be able to live in a home that was clean, that was free of obstructions, free of items where essentially I know this from being an adult, and I went through my own phase of like, I'm not going to clean up. Why would I? Who cares? Like, whatever. I could do whatever I want. I live in my own place now. But then you realize stress, it starts to affect you mentally. It starts to affect you physically. You don't want to get out of bed. You don't want to deal with the mess. And when a parent allows their child to behave in that way, or allows their child to live in that circumstance, whose fault is that really? Is that the child's fault? Is that the parent's fault? And that's just one part of it. Now, a major part of this case is Jennifer Crumbley and her husband, James Crumbley, purchased this firearm for their son. Now, granted, only James Crumbley was at the gun store with Ethan. But they agreed upon it. It's not like the husband just went out one day and said, I'm going to get the kid a gun, and Jennifer, you don't worry about it. Jennifer knew. They both agreed on it. They both were in consensus on it. So at what point is it negligent? Knowing your child has these issues, whether you believe them or not, you're calling him weird. You know something's off. So that's really what this case is about. And I think that is what is what's so hard to grapple with. Because where is that fine line of a parent just saying, all right, whatever? Because I had plenty of friends that lived in way filthier, disgruntled, dysfunctional homes than I did. They didn't shoot up a school, but Ethan did. So at what point do we draw the line? Now, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. I don't want to, just summarize the entire case, although being that I have reached to day 7 now, I feel like I can get there. I want to talk about day 2. So let's get into day 2 and just talk about the things that happened there that really stood out to me. So starting off in the morning, I feel like the defense attorney starts off with wanting to have a psychiatrist testify and also have Ethan Crumbley testify. Now, it's not impossible to have a psychiatrist testify, but I think she's running into some roadblocks here. And she also needs a psychiatrist that has evaluated Ethan, maybe his mother as well, to be able to speak on this. Ethan has pled the 5th. So he, by law, you can't call a witness that has already pled the 5th. That is what the judge has said numerous times. She's ruled on this. And for whatever reason, the defense attorney does not want to accept it. They keep going back and forth. They want to. We know how this if you haven't watched, this defense attorney has been a piece of work. There has not been a moment that the prosecution has been able to sufficiently completed a direct examination, even their closing arguments, without this defense attorney jumping in. Objection. She doesn't fear an objection. I will tell you that. She does not fear an objection, and good for her. Because as a defense attorney, I've seen plenty, and this is the thing. I've seen so many comments about this defense attorney, and listen, I'm not her biggest fan, but I will say this. How many defense attorneys have you seen that just sit there? No questions. I mean, I'm thinking of Chandler Holderson more than anything right now, but no questions. Thank you. Right. So at least she's trying. As annoying as she is trying. So I'm going to give her that. And I like on day 2 how the judge is standing very firm with the defense attorney in the morning, very early in the morning. But for whatever reason, guys, I don't know what it is. I feel like this judge has some type of affinity, or she feels a connection, or I don't know. Maybe she's known Shannon Smith in the Michigan world for a while, and she feels like, oh, I'll support her. I want to look out. I want to, I don't know. But the amount of leeway, the amount of just pure disrespect almost she allows of this defense attorney is astounding. Astounding. I've never seen anything like it. She'll interrupt her mid-speaking. This judge is the most mild-mannered judge I've ever seen in my life. And granted, I haven't watched that many trials, but just based on the comments, if I'm in the comment section, the people that have been seasoned trial watchers, this judge is laissez-faire. I think I said it before, what? Anything goes. What are you worried about? Anything goes in this courtroom, don't you know? It's too chill for me. It's too chill. And honestly, I think it's disrespectful to the prosecution. It's disrespectful. So if you guys can't tell, I'm a little bit congested, but that's why I didn't record over the weekend while I was watching. I was really trying to recover, and I'm still kind of congested, but I'm leaving on vacation in 2 days, so I want to try to do this while it's still fresh. So yeah, I find that she's standing firm initially in the morning, but then she kind of midway through, I'm like, what's happening here? Because it seems like at first I was like, wait, is the jury there? Like, what were you arguing in front of the jury? Which they do multiple times. They argue in front of the jury plenty of times. It's the attorneys that will say, I think you should excuse the jury. And it's like, as the judge, shouldn't you be the one to say, hey guys, actually, I'm going to excuse the jury because this is inappropriate? You were the judge. And I might be getting ahead of myself, but there's a couple of times where someone has to tell her, it's your courtroom. What do you want us to do? You tell us. You're the judge. And she's like, oh, yeah, I guess I am the judge. I guess I should tell you what to do. It's like, okay, well, that would be nice. So around the 16th minute, I'm saying I'm very impressed with the judge. That's, based on my notes, I'm very impressed with the judge. And now I see how she made it. Maybe in that moment, she really had she hit some points and she was in there. And she was like, I'm going to show you I know the law. And I was like, okay, all right. I like this because I like law followers. I'm a stickler for a good rule. Okay. So if you have the rules there, tell me what the rules are. I'm here to abide. And if I don't want to abide, I don't want to play. But clearly she's holding firm, which I like. They go back and forth over allowing text messages in, and the defense attorney, it gets very emotional and sensitive. Oh my God. Oh, poor me. And the judge keeps sympathizing with the defense attorney. It's insane. It's insane how this judge, I don't get it. Long story short, Jennifer Crumbley, listen, she likes a cocktail and she likes riding her horses. So there were some text messages between her and her husband that's like, oh, get drunk tonight. It was St. Patty's Day. My fiance's Irish. Listen, we love to get drunk on St. Patty's Day. And prior to even meeting him, I love to get drunk on St. Patty's Day. Like, it's St. Patty's Day. Like, that's the day to get drunk. Cinco de Mayo, St. Patty's Day. I mean, come on. So I think the things that they were bringing in, I get it, but she was saying she wanted to have a cocktail and Ethan was texting her around the same time saying he was hallucinating, right? I'm seeing things flying in the house. I'm seeing demons. And she just doesn't respond, apparently. Jennifer doesn't respond. Maybe she calls him and has a 20-second conversation. But that's the extent of it. She's like, figure it out. I don't know. And I'm just like, okay. Well, later on, she'll get into when she tells her testimony that they like to joke around in their house. And she felt like they were joking around. And just a quick story. So I grew up in a home that was it was an older home. It was built in 1912 or 1914. So it was like old. And when we lived there, we kind of felt like a presence, an energy there, right? Because it was old. Plenty of people lived there. I think even the owner prior to us died in the home or something, So I remember my sister frequently telling stories of things flying off the wall and only when she was home. My sister was a storyteller for sure. She was a storyteller. And it was mostly attention seeking, I think. I was never like that. My eldest sister was never like that, but my middle sister was very much attention seeking. So she would always whenever she was home alone, it was oh my God, the vacuum just turned on by itself, or oh my God, this picture just flew off the wall. And even if I go to her today, she'll probably still tell me that happened, but I never had any like weird things. Like I would get creeped out in the house, sure, because I'm just like, oh, it's so big and like, spooky and like creaky. And old houses creak, even just with the wind. But my sister would like make up these stories. So hearing this, like it made me think of my sister. It made me think of like the things that she would say. And I'm not saying Ethan didn't see these things, but I do think part of it was more so attention seeking. So I don't know, but that's my guess. If I had to guess, right? So yeah, they get into that, the hallucinating, and I think it's so interesting. And I guess this is a Michigan thing. And by the way, I just want to say, like in Michigan, like I love their accents. It's a mix between like a Canadian and like, like an American accent. It's just kind of fun, right? It kind of adds a little spice to your day. So I it's like hello, like not even that's not even the accent. I'm so bad with accents, but it's like, well, what, you know, I'm really bad with accents, but I really love their accent out there. So I just wanted to mention that. And I guess it's also a Michigan thing to have like 8 or 9 sheriffs or deputies or bailiffs, whatever you want to call them, just lined up by the defendant. If you were in custody, they're not playing with you. It's not going to be like the Vegas situation where this guy is jumping over, like, no, they are lined up, ready to go. So I was like, okay. Listen, Jennifer, I don't think she's running anywhere, but even if someone did consider it, they were like, not going to happen. So I just thought that was interesting because I typically don't see that. Typically, there might be a bailiff or a sheriff or whatever it may be, or a deputy in the courtroom, but they're not like lined up. And I'm like, they have to stand there all day through trial. Like, I love watching a trial from the comfort of my home or, wherever I am, and just being able to like scroll through, like, oh, it's lunch. Oh, and just scroll through, whereas they're just like standing there. I mean, I'm sure they get their lunch, but I just thought that was like funny because it's like, goodness, that's a long day. And it's just like the defense attorney. So I'm just going to like, just really quick, just getting into like, how confused is it, like, how confused can you be at work? Like, she's at work, right? And they have mountains of evidence. I'm not going to dispute that they don't have mountains of evidence. I know they have mountains of evidence. And I'm not an attorney, so I don't need to go through all that evidence. I'm here to watch the trial. But I know it's not the most evidence in the world. Like, I know there's more evidence that attorneys have to go through. And apparently, she's a high-profile attorney, defense attorney. And the fact that she's like, what exhibit is this? I haven't seen this. They haven't given this to me. You got these exhibits 2 years ago, ma'am. Why don't you know what exhibit you're on? Why can't you follow along? And I think the prosecution was like, I wouldn't have been as nice. Honestly, I wouldn't have been. I would have been like, you need to figure it out. Period. You need to figure it out. I wouldn't be like, oh, here's the exhibit, here's this, no, I wouldn't have. Because why? Why would I do that? It's me against you, baby girl. You need to figure it out. You're the defense attorney. If anything, you should know these exhibits better than I do. I'm just the prosecution where I'm just defending for the state. I'm just prosecuting for the state. You're defending a person in their life and 15 years on the line. Jennifer Crumbley is facing 15 years. And she's already been in jail for 2 years. Now, listen. We'll see what the jury comes back with. Right now, I'm going to be honest, I think it's going to be a hung jury. Because, I don't know. Well, listen, I do think it's going to be a hung jury. The reason why I'm just even speculating right now is because they did come back with questions today. And I know I'm jumping ahead. We're only on day 2 as part of this video. But in reality, they're deliberating right now and they came back with questions for the court. So they are trying, but I feel like this case is so murky that I think it's going to be hung jury. But listen, I could be wrong. I could be 100% wrong. And I hope I am, because a hung jury, no one wins. I'd rather it be a verdict either way. So let's see. But okay, so moving on, back to day two, because I don't want to make this video like super long. I wanted to kind of get through day two. I thought I was going to be done actually already. So day two, the text between Ethan Crumbley and his one and only friend. He had one friend. And listen, I don't have a ton of friends. I probably had like one or two friends, but I wasn't planning on murdering anyone. He had one friend, and he lost that one friend from school, and his mom wasn't concerned about that. Like that's a concern, actually. That's a huge concern. He had one. So he's telling his one friend that his mom, like he's told his parents that he wants to go to the doctor. He needs help. And they're just kind of laughing at him and like giving him pills like, oh, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. And not for nothing, when she gets on the stand, I'm jumping ahead, I don't care. I get it. She is her son. Her son is her. She is her son, and her son is her. And the father, James, I haven't seen him like really speak yet. He is his son, and his son is him. They are weird. And when I say weird, I'm not just like, oh, trying to judge them. No. Something's not right here. And the first thing, I'm jumping ahead, I don't care. The first thing I thought when she testified was, she doesn't have a friend. Let me save it. Because I'm jumping ahead. Let me finish day two. I'm going to finish day two, guys. Okay. So let's just get through it really quick. So we find out he's looking up bullets in school. She's laughing it off with him. Okay. We find out about the drawings. You know, there's very disturbing drawings. He then crosses out the drawings, you know, like, oh no, I love my life. I love the world. I love everyone. It's like you're saying the opposite of what you feel. And it seems like Jennifer Crumbley did seem like annoyed that when she gets the call from the school administration that this is disrupting her day. You'll find out later she wants to hang out with her boo. She's not trying to deal with this nonsense. She wants to ride her horses, hang out with her boo, and go about her day. Ignore her husband and her son. That's just the vibe I get. Does that make her a bad mom? I mean, people have seasons, right? Everyone goes through seasons. Does that make her a bad mom? I mean, maybe it does. Let the jury decide. But if that's the case, my father should be in jail, right? Like, he was living his best life. And so if I went and murdered people or whatever, he should be in jail then because he was neglecting me. Like, where does it end? Right? Like, okay. So that's, you guys can probably see where I'm going with this. Oh my God, my nose is getting more congested. I'm sorry, guys. So it's hard for me to breathe. Okay, wait. In her text messages, though, she literally admits to being on the run, though. She says, I'm on the run again. So, like, that doesn't help. So there's a cross-examination now of the tech analysis person. The defense attorney starts asking him about his inability to review information. This is hysterical to me because the defense attorney, Shannon Smith, literally has an issue reviewing information. And she's asking him, like, well, don't you have an issue, like, reviewing? It's like, what are you talking about? Like, you have the biggest issue reviewing information. Like, you're incompetent with reviewing information. But I think the prosecution at this point just gives up objecting to her because it's like, let her dig her own hole. And it's just hysterical. I have to sneeze. It seems like the defense attorney is about to object to herself. She asked the question, but she didn't want the answer about the text messages between Ethan Crumbley and Jennifer Crumbley. I don't know. My video cut off, so I'm back, guys. So the judge interrupts her, basically says asked and answered, and the defense attorney complains that they're trailing off and repeating, and she doesn't want that. But you're like, she's literally in cross-examination when she says this, so it's like, no one's trailing off but you control the trailing off. You're asking the questions. Then the defense attorney is asking the prosecutor to display the evidence during cross. Like, he's not your assistant. And this is also hysterical to me. I think, okay, so during this, oh, yes. So there is a co-counsel. The defense attorney has co-counsel, a male co-counsel that's like sitting on the edge there. He doesn't do anything. And I know he doesn't do anything. So this is when you start to see Shannon Smith, the defense attorney, start getting worked up and just like I'm a one-woman show. Like, I'm doing this by myself. And it's like, the judge has to remind her, you're retained counsel. No one forced you to be here. It's not even like you are appointed. You're retained. What are you talking about? Like, so it's the level of, oh, I don't understand why this is happening to me when you signed up for this is astounding. So that's her whole vibe pretty much for the entire trial. It's not just today. She does it all the way through the entire trial of like, poor me. Why is this happening to me? I don't have the information. Why don't I have the information when everything was given to her 2 years ago? Yeah. And I think, so day 2 is when the defense attorney, Shannon Smith, references offing herself, like unliving herself. And it's just like, what? During a child murder case? Like, what? What are you talking about? Like, suicide? Like, what? You can't do that. You can't say that. You can't. What? Why would you even say that? So it's just, I feel like the defense cross-examination has added zero value on day 2. Day 2 had zero value. She starts having a tantrum on redirect about the horses versus Ethan's conversation between Jennifer Crumbley and James Crumbley. And like, she starts talking about like having to sleep that night, and there's only one of her. So it goes back to what I'm saying, like, because she's like, there's so much evidence and I can't go through all this evidence, and like, I have to sleep. Like, ma'am, hire someone else, like, get assistance. Like, what? You are retained counsel. So she's like, I don't have enough time. And it's just like, Jesus, I can't. So at this moment, I know in my last video, I'm like, oh, it's too many women in the court. But I will say the female prosecutor, she has boss energy. I like that boss energy. But the judge is just way too coddling, and it's embarrassing. And I started to wonder, like, does the judge personally know her? Maybe she does through like professional relationships, but it almost seems like it's our aunt or something. Like, what is happening right now? Like, why is she so nice to her? Why is she's giving her all the passes? And I'm just not okay with it. I don't feel comfortable with it. And everything about it makes me feel like, are we doing something wrong by watching this? Like, it seems like they have their own thing figured out. So that's day 2 in a nutshell. I know I jumped ahead because I ended up watching a couple more days. So I'm a little bit of a cheats. And really for day 3, I don't have much. So I'm just going to really kind of add it into this if I can. So don't kill me, because this is probably going to be like an hour long or 45 minutes long. But the defense attorney, because day 3 after day 2, the prosecution is like, that was completely inappropriate. At the end of day 2, the prosecution says that was completely inappropriate that she mentioned unaliving herself. And the defense attorney was arguing, saying, no, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it like that. How dare you say that? I didn't mean it like that. And then the judge is like defending her. It's like, oh, I think it was just a slip of the tongue. She didn't mean it. You know, everyone makes mistakes. It's like, what? Are we in a court of law? This should be like the highest standard upheld, right? In a court of law, it should be the highest standard upheld. That doesn't seem to matter in this courtroom. So she apologizes to the court. She then, when the jury comes in, she apologizes, to say, I'm sorry, I was out of line. The first witness of day 3 is the horse ranch owner. I'm blanking on her name right now. Actually, I wrote it down. I think it was like Kayla or like, I'm blanking on it. It's irrelevant, but it's gonna annoy me now. I should have wrote down her name. But basically, she talks about how she basically says how Jennifer kind of refers to Ethan as her oopsie baby, and like, oh, like she never really brought him around, and she was really just kind of like probing Jennifer for more information, like after the school shooting. Like she wanted to just kind of pretend like to be friends with her, but she really wasn't friends with her. I'm like, you sneaky little... I don't like sneaky people. And listen, I get it. I get what she was doing, but I just don't like sneaky people. It's like either you're here, you ride it, or you're not. That's why I keep my circle very small, because you never know who's out to get you. It's like, she was just she probably thought, oh, I could talk to the horse lady. And the horse lady's out here to get you. Like, she was preparing to testify against you from that day. She was preparing. Like, she was like, oh, I'm going to take notes. I'm about to, it's like, you can't trust people. So that was the horse ranch lady. And listen, I get it. Her intention was to get as much information for law enforcement. I get that part. I do. And listen, support. But at the same time, I'm just saying, you can't trust people. That's my point. You can't, because you never know who's out to get you. So by all means, I don't think she did anything wrong, but I'm just saying, from the other side of it, it's like, who can you trust? Like, you think you just have the horse lady you could talk to? Like, I store my horses there. Maybe she can sympathize with me. And she's pretending. The thing is the pretending. She's pretending like she's sympathizing with her, instead of just like ignoring her or something, I don't know. It just rubs me the wrong way, because she got on the stand and said basically like, oh, I just wanted to get as much information as I could out of her. It's like, damn, that's cold. That is cold. I did put, like, the defense attorney is good at acknowledging leading questions. Like, as soon as the prosecution starts a leading question, she's like, leading, objection, leading. Like, she knows a leading question. And the reason why I think this is because she only asks leading questions. I haven't seen her ask a direct question. And granted, she's cross-examining all of the prosecution witnesses, so she can ask leading questions on cross-examination. I get that. But even when Jennifer Crumbley is on the stand, like, she's just asking her leading questions. And honestly, I don't think the prosecution objects that much to her leading questions, because they just wanted the information. So I don't think they really cared as much, but I just thought that was funny. Yeah. So there's a point where the defense attorney, she brings up COVID and sending her kids home with the school. She's asking this to the counselor during cross-examination, saying like, oh, like, if it was COVID, would you be able to send a kid home? And like kind of saying, why didn't you send the kids home? Send Ethan home, really. And the counselor's basically saying, that's beyond my reach. Like, I don't send kids home. Like, it's for disciplinary reasons, or like they don't have a school nurse, but I guess they have someone that would be able to send kids home if they're sick. I don't know, but I will say this though. The school counselor, I do see him as being like very intelligent, no nonsense. He knew his stuff. At the same time, I do feel like the school dropped the ball. They did. The school dropped the ball because the school, Jennifer Crumbley was probably not the greatest parent in the world. Sure, I'll give you that all day. But the school also dropped the ball. I mean, granted, they're in Michigan, so a lot of kids have their guns, homecoming photos. They're posing with their rifles. Like they're having a good time. But these are social kids. You need to take everything into context. Ethan was a weird kid in the sense of he was isolated. He was by himself. He didn't have any friends. He was a quiet kid. So you put all that together, it's like, wait a minute, I think something's going on here. Like, in my house, you couldn't be too quiet. Like, my mom let me be quiet, but she was like, if you're too quiet, what are you doing over there? Like, she was like, what are you doing? Like, and I think they needed a little bit of that, of like, just like getting in their business. I think there's too much of like, oh, I'm going to give him his privacy. I'm going to let him do whatever he wants. No, be in his face. You are. Yeah, it cut off, but the point is be in your kid's face, right? Like you need to know what's going on. You need to know what's going on. So I think that's really day 2 and day 3. I think I can end the video here. And I think just my closing thoughts. Oh, day 3, I do want to mention the interrogation video. Jennifer Crumbley is on her phone the entire time. So she's literally in the interrogation room after she finds out her son is a school shooter. And this is before she sees Ethan. And this is her. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. And just like, ma'am, I would be like in the interrogator's face, like, what? Tell me everything you know because I'm shocked. Like her reaction, and listen, I don't know what it's like to have a kid. I don't have any kids. I don't know what it's like to have a kid that's a school shooter. I don't know what anything that she's experiencing is like. So I'm not going to try to sit on my high horse like she should have done this and she should have done that. But I think a normal reaction, even if I'm not related to the person, even if I would be engaged in that conversation like you would not believe. Like even if it was a neighbor, coworker, a man down the street, and the police pulled me, I would be engaged in that conversation. Now you just have those people sometimes that are just addicted to their phone. I live with one of them, so I know how it is. They're just addicted to their phone and they can't even look up sometimes. I just think overall as a society, that this is me on my soapbox, it's just a problem. So I don't know if that was her being neglectful parent or just like, it's like a compulsion and like a comfort mechanism for a lot of people just to play with their phone. So I don't know, but either way, I just find it to be inappropriate. And I feel like, especially for Jennifer Crumbley, like she's older than I am and she didn't grow up with a phone attached to her hip. So you should be able to have social interactions. Like if it was a Gen Z or an Alpha, Gen Alpha, or whatever these new kids are, like then I would get it because it's like that's what they know. But it's like you grew up in the 70s, 80s. Like what are you doing? Like why are you like addicted to your phone? Like you've never seen human interaction before. Like you should be able to interact with humans. And her husband was there. Like he had normal human interaction. He was the one that was like, at least greeted Ethan and said like, son, I love you. Like, and she's just like, why would you do? Like, it's just like, listen, I get like, she's like angry, but it was just like, it was odd. It was just odd. So I think that's pretty much it. I think that really covers day 3. So on day 3 is when someone has to remind the judge that it's her courtroom. I referenced it earlier, but it's like upon reviewing the exhibits, someone has to remind the judge it's her courtroom and it's her decision to make if the cameras remain on. Because she's like, oh, should the cameras be on? And they're like, it's your courtroom. What do you want to do? Do you want the cameras on? And she's like, oh, I get it. It's like, okay. So anyway, so that's day 2 and day 3, guys. I'm gonna try to put together day 4, day 5, and day 6, maybe all in one, and just like cover that together, and then cross examination, yes, and then closing arguments needs to be their own because it is intense. I might even need to watch the closing arguments again before I do another video. Hopefully I can do it before the jury comes back with their verdict because like I said earlier, they are out deliberating now. So I'm just like trying to get caught up with recording these videos, but the jury's out for deliberation, so we're probably going to have an answer within like hours from me recording this and posting it. So I hope you guys enjoy. I really appreciate you guys staying and listening and just staying with my madness and my stories and my congestion as well. So I hope to see you guys all again soon. And thank you for joining In the Gallery with Laura Ali. I am out. Bye, guys.